to say there is a God. You see, because there's a whole lot of people out there who do not believe in the God you believe in. There's a whole lot of people that say they might believe in him or have knowledge of him, but they really don't believe in him, because if they believed in him, then it's really talking about what the gist of this morning's message was all about. The way to conquer fear and panic is not to be believing in the answer, not to have faith in our faith, but to have faith in him and who he is. And that means his attributes, his characteristics, his love for us, and how he expresses that love. And he doesn't want to see you harmed, and he wants you to prosper. When we get our faith in that fact, then we know whatever we experience is nothing, because God's going to take care of us. So we got to first believe that he is. And then it goes on and says, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So this morning we took the fact of this verse about the he is part. Our faith has to be in him, and that he is everything to us and everything for us. But tonight I want to concentrate about another aspect, because we're all prone to fear, but we're also prone to the very thing we're going to be talking about tonight, and that is doubt. It doesn't matter how long you've been saved. There will come a time you may have fear, you may have panic, and the same thing is true with doubt. You see, when God delays, when God doesn't answer the way we think he's going to answer, when things go from bad to worse, it's going to get to the point where we begin to question. You see, doubt starts with question. You can't have doubt without a question. The question is, where is God? That brings doubt. Why is this happening? That brings doubt. How come he's not doing something? That brings doubt. All these things begin to stir doubt in our... And I read something just a while ago. Since our electricity was out and I was saving gas, I wasn't going to turn on the generator. I came up here early and done a lot of studying up here. But one of the things that I read across in my studying up here for just a few moments was something that I thought was so interesting. It said this. It said, doubt is like an attention-starved child. You know what those children are like. They do things all the time, and they're simply trying to get your attention. It says doubt is like the attention-starved child in this. The more attention you give them, the more attention they need. You ever thought about that? You sometimes literally have to ignore them, because otherwise they will do greater things to get your attention. And doubt is the same way. The more attention we start giving those questions of doubt, the more questions that begin to rise up. The more doubts they bring along with it. And so tonight we want to talk about the doubt factor. And we know a factor is just a part of the equation. So sometimes in trying to see the unseen and be trusting in faith, one of the things that keeps us from that is doubt. We know that the Bible is very strict on saying that we have to be firm. James tells us in his book that, that we can't have doubt. And if we have doubt, we're like a person being tossed by a wave to and fro. And he says we're like a double-minded person. And so we know all these warnings about doubt. Jesus said, if you will say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and doubt not. You see, there's so many times we know. So what happens when we experience doubt? If we really have a sincere doubt because we've been following God, we've been trusting God, but this issue has been big and it's been taking a while, and we are really confused and we don't understand, and we've been praying and struggling and fasting and waiting and seeking counsel, and there's still no answers, and so these questions start nagging at us, and we find ourselves experiencing some doubt. Does that mean God's going to cast us away? We'll never see our answer because we've had some doubts? You see, in this verse it says, without faith. Faith is believing. Faith is the opposite of doubt. This morning I told you you can't have faith and fear at the same time. It's impossible. They negate each other. You can only have one or the other. Well, doubt begins to do that same thing. When we read this verse, we say without faith. Well, that means without believing, without trusting. And then it says, why? Because we first must believe. So we have to have belief before we can even get started in this thing. So what if I got questions? I want to read you a story about a man that had questions. And I think that for most of us, since we're saved, I trust most of you here tonight, you have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so you've been through this faith cycle before where you've trusted God for some amazing things and God has pulled through. There's been struggles. There's been times of hardship. But because you persevered, God has always come through. But maybe today or maybe tomorrow you're going to be faced with something, and all of a sudden something you thought you would never do, and that's question God. You find yourself questioning God. Maybe not in front of other people, but when you're home by yourself. Maybe not in front of your family. Maybe not in front of your friends. But you find those moments when you're by yourself, when you begin to cry, you begin to weep, you begin to seek. God, why? This man found himself in that position. It's a story you're familiar with. If you want to follow along, it's in Mark 9, and I'm going to be reading 17 through 27. I think I use the New King James Version, but I'm not sure. Mark 9, 17 through 27. And Jesus had come down. His disciples were already there. And what has been happening is a man had come to the disciples, and he had a son that had been filled with a demonic spirit. And he was dealing with this, and it was doing harmful things to his son, and he had gotten desperate. And he had heard about Jesus, and he had heard about the followers of Jesus. And so he thinks that maybe if I can get there, they can do something. And so he brings his son to the disciples. And I don't know how long this has been going on, but nothing is working. Nothing is happening. And now there's a commotion, and there's actually arguments going on. And Jesus comes walking up, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And we pick it up in verse 17. And when Jesus is asking what's going on here, it says, a man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of his speech. Whenever it seizes him, whenever it comes upon him, whenever it controls him, whichever way you want to look at it, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth. He begins to gnash his teeth, and he becomes very rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." So Jesus stands there and he looks among them and he gives a rebuke. And it's a little bit aimed at his disciples. It's a little bit aimed at this man. And it's really a lot aimed at the Pharisees and all the unbelievers out there. But he's really saying it out there. And it's sort of like, have you ever said something that was sort of like, well, if the shoe fits, wear it. You know, I ain't saying this one to anyone in particular, but if it fits you, then you just put it on, and you deal with that. And so Jesus looks at him, he says, "You unbelieving generation." Now, some translations will say faithless, but if you do not have faith, then you are not believing, and you are unbelieving. And so really, any of those words fit in there very well. He says, "You unbelieving generation. How long shall I stay with you?" I wonder, has Jesus ever had to say that to you? How long have you been saved? How long have you been trusting God? How long have you been following God? And God has done things in your life, and you would acknowledge right here, yes, if it wasn't for God, that wouldn't have happened. God protected me here. God delivered me here. God saved me here. God provided here. And so you have a relationship with God where you know things have worked together, and you've trusted Him with things, and you've prayed to Him some things. And now all of a sudden, you're in a spot, and you're struggling because the answer's not coming, and you've got those questions, and you got that. What if He just looked at you and said, "How long am I going to put up with you?" You ever wanted to say that to someone else? When you get tired of their junk, their drama. I get so tired of drama. You ain't ever heard till drama. You walk one day in Jesus' shoes, and you'll find you some drama. 7 billion people on this planet tell me He don't deal with drama. How much drama has He had to deal with you? How many times has He had to deal with drama with you? But yet He's faithful. He's stuck with you. He's helped you out. But yet every time it's like we forget about all that. Oh God, I'm only concerned about what's going on right now. How am I going to deal with this? Where are you? Blah, 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 blah. And what if Jesus just walked up in your face and said, "How long, Debbie, am I going to put up with your drama?" That'd be rough, wouldn't it? Well, that's what Jesus did right here. He said, "How long am I going to put up with you?" And then He says something even like, He says, "How long will I stay with you? How long will I put up with you?" So He just get tired of it. He says, "Bring the boy to me." You see, that's why I think He was still talking to His disciples a little bit here, even though a lot of commentaries say He was really talking to everybody. But see, He was upset that His disciples couldn't do it, because he's sort of thinking, I think these words are more to do with them than anybody else, no matter what the commentary said. Because Jesus is like, "Hey guys, I've been with you almost 3 years. You've been with me day in and day out. You've seen how this works. You've heard me talk. You've been with me. I have talked with you. I have spent time with you. I have revealed things to you, and you should be able to do this. I ain't going to be able to stay here forever. I'm about to leave. Just 6 months from now or a year from now, depending on where we are in Jesus' life frame of his ministry, 3-year ministry right here. He says, I ain't going to be here forever. It's going to take time. You're going to have to grow up and start doing some of this. I've showed you how. I've taught you how to pray. I've taught you how to fast. I've told you how to seek God and do all these things, to trust in the Word. Believe in me. That's what you need. So verse 20 goes on. So they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? You know, I've said it before, and I like to remind you of this. Does Jesus not know all things? He already knew how long that boy had been doing that. When God asks us a question, when Jesus asks you a question, there's a purpose to it. He's trying to get us to admit some things, to own up to some things, or maybe just prove to us, well, look, you've been trying to do this for so long and it ain't working. Now you're finally come to the right place. There's a reason and a purpose. So he says, how long has he been like this? And so the father responds. He said, well, from childhood. He said, matter of fact, it's often thrown him into the fire or the water to kill him. So that got me to thinking here. I wonder what this boy looks like. This demon has tried to kill him since he was a child. They might be cooking their breakfast or supper. They may be sitting around a campfire at night. That boy's just living his life and enjoying it, and all of a sudden, he is tossed into that fire. He just literally gets up and flings himself into the fire. Sometimes he'd done into the water to the point where he was almost drowned. No telling what other things might have happened. So this boy is scarred from these things. And he's saying, man, it's been bad ever since he was a little kid. We've been dealing with this. And so then the father looks at Jesus and says something very interesting. He says, but if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. You see, he's saying us. Because if a parent has a parent's heart, there ain't nothing happening to that child that ain't happening to them. When that child was thrown into the fire, that parent was burning inside. He was hurting inside. He was feeling that pain. He's seen the pain of his child. He experienced everything, and he was as bound by that demon as the child was. He says, but if you can do anything, can you take pity on us? Feel sorry for us. I don't care if you do it for any other reason. Just feel sorry for me and do it just because you felt sorry for me. You see, I've been there before. There's been times I said, you know what, I'm not going to help this person. I'm not going to do something. But I began to feel sorry for them. I began to have pity on them as I began to experience and see and learn more of their circumstance. And so we move out of that. Sometimes we will cry out to God, God, just feel sorry for me and have pity on me. It don't matter, but if you can, could you help us? This was a desperate cry. Been happening since the boy was a child. No telling how many people he had went to, how many places he went to, how many treatments he had tried, how many chants he let people speak over him, how many things that people gave advice for, and nothing worked. And now it's almost like this is my last chance, my last resort. I just came here because I heard some things, and so far it's not working. But now you're here. If you can do anything, even if you just feel sorry for us, can you help us? Jesus' response, and I don't think the word takes anything Jesus says lightly. And when it says it this way, I think it means it this way. And when you look in your Bible, let's see, how does it say it up here? It says, but if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. If you can, said Jesus, everything is possible for him that believes. Now, some people try to say, they didn't need to say Jesus said that in the middle. They needed to just say, if you can, everything is possible to him who believes. You see, that makes a lot of sense. But I think Jesus said it this way on purpose. Because that man was dealing with doubt. We're going to find that out in just another sentence or two. So I think Jesus really incredulously, or however you say that word, like if you can. What are you talking about? I'm the Son of God. What are you talking about? I'm the Son of the Almighty. What are you talking about? I'm the Savior of the earth. What are you talking about if you can? You see what I'm saying? How it changes? Instead of being directed at the man and Jesus looking at the man and saying, if you can believe, all things are possible, he says, if you can, pause. So I think the tone, you see, the amazing thing about words is tone changes that whole thing around. That's why texts, posts on Facebook, tweets, and all these things cause so many problems. There's no reflection of tone in there. We don't know if the person's kidding. We don't know if the person's being sarcastic. We don't know if they're saying it in anger or if they're saying it while they're laughing. We just see the words. You see, I think Jesus didn't say, if you can, everything's possible. I think he said, if you can. Because, see, he knew that man was experiencing doubt. So he's attacking that doubt already. Well, what do you mean, if I can? We got a problem already if you're coming to me and saying, if I can do this. You got to come to me saying, I know you can. I believe you can. I know you will. You see, one of the things about doubt is that it's not that we believe that that God can't do something. We believe God can, but will he? You see, doubt's about the will he, not the can he. You can talk to the doubter and say, I know God can move mountains. I know God can cure cancer. I know God can raise the dead. But when it comes to me in my life, I don't know if he will. I know he can, but I don't know if he will. And you see, doubt is all about the personalization. And so I believe Jesus personally began to question. It's almost like saying, sometimes, guys, let's talk to our masculinity here for just a minute. When the woman in your life, honey, can you open this? What are you going to say? I don't think so. You're going to immediately look like a puffer fish. What do you mean, if I can? Hand it here. Then they're going to go to opening it. And they will face you as long as it's easy. But if they start struggling, you watch them do this number. You don't want to see him getting red in the face, veins popping out, struggling and all that. Then when he finally gets it open, he turns only to hear you say, I guess I loosened it for you. What do you mean, if I can? Yeah. You know I can. And then he says after that, after he attacks the doubt in the man's life by saying, what do you mean, if I can? What do you mean, if you can? He says, let me tell you this. Everything is possible for the one who believes. Now he's turning it around. He's saying, a moment ago, you asked me if I could do anything. Now I'm telling you, it's not if I can, it's if you can. Jesus is pointing the finger right back at him and saying, it's not if I can do this, it's if you can believe, if you can trust. Because everything is possible to him that believes. And you see, the man caught this. The man understood. He understood that he had came to Jesus with a need because at one time he thought Jesus could. But now all of a sudden he's thinking he won't. He don't know if he will. That's why he reaches out to the extreme and says, if you'll just have pity on us, because he's reaching out for anything just to make Jesus move. I know you can do it, but I don't know what it's going to take to make you move. So if you'll just have pity. But you see, there's that doubt in there. So Jesus said, it's not me, it's you, if you can. Everything is possible. To who? The one that believes. And this is how we know the man caught it, because he cries something out immediately. The Bible says immediately. The boy's father exclaimed, I do believe! I believe! But help my unbelief. I've said that before. I've been there before. I know exactly what he was talking about. Knowing God can, I've seen him do it for others. I've seen him do it for my family. I've seen him do it for myself many, many times. And in this moment, I'm saying, God, I know you can. I know you can. I know you can. But that stupid doubt, that stupid question, it's hammering, it's reverberating, it's echoing through my mind and through my day and through my heart, and it won't let me get settled. And so I'm sitting here, God, I know you can, but there's a part of me that doesn't. Can you help that part? Help me overcome my unbelief. It says, when Jesus saw the crowd come running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. It says, you deaf and mute spirit, he said, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. The spirit shrieked, convulsed, shook him violently, and came out. And the boy looked so much like a corpse that many began to say, he's dead. Looking around, yeah, Jesus didn't do so good on this one. That dude's toast. He's laying still. He's not breathing. He's just laying there. It says, but Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet and stood up. So here's where we get to the crux to this, and I'm going to try to wrap this up in about the next 5 minutes. Don't want to keep you too long tonight. Even though the man had doubt, Jesus met his need. You know, sometimes we get so hung up on the faith thing, we feel like if we fail a little bit in that faith issue, we're never going to see the unseen. We're never going to see what we're so desperately trying for. And doubt can do that sometimes. But the doubt factor I'm dealing with tonight is the doubt that a Christian experiences, that the son or daughter of the Most High, you've got a relationship with Jesus Christ, that we experience from time to time. And we wonder, God, you've done it before, but I'm struggling with this one. He had doubt, but he still had his need met. Jesus said, if you doubt not and you believe, all these things are going to happen. The reference is, but if we do doubt, it's not going to happen. But Jesus met his need. And so I wanted to know, I said, God, why? What set this situation apart? Why did you deal with doubt in this man's life? His doubt was as real as anyone else's. I thought, and you know, the answer that came to me was, what's the best way to help somebody that's dealing with doubt and unbelief? Give them what they're asking. Do that particular miracle. If I'm doubting God can do something and I'm questioning, is he able? Will he do it? Does he care enough for me? The best way I can prove it to him is do it for him. In that moment he's struggling, give him the answer. Give him the miracle. Do it right then and there. Do exactly what he was struggling to believe for, what he was crying out for. So how then would this help this man's unbelief? How would this help his doubting? You see, every time God moves in our behalf, it does make us a little stronger. Yes, we're still succumbing to those things. We might still have an issue with that. But every time God does something for his children become a little bit stronger. I can guarantee you that man, when he went home and other people began to ask, seen him like this, and I've known him since he was little bitty. It is a miracle. What happened? And he begins to tell them, the man named Jesus, the one you've heard about, he done this, he done this. And somebody will say, but I have a brother, I have a cousin, I know somebody, I have a friend, I have a coworker, that this same thing's happening. He would tell them, you just go there, and you may doubt, and you may struggle, and you may not believe it, but I can tell you this, if you'll just go to him and give him a chance, it's going to change. God can do something. He would be that much stronger. Remember when we read Hebrews 11:6 a while ago? It says, without faith it's impossible to please God, for he who comes to God must first believe he is, and he's a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. That man learned that lesson. He had to come to God. He believed in God and who he was, but he was questioning, would this God do anything for him? Did this God care for him? And he had doubts.